Hey everyone, it's me Hallease, back with another video. I wanted to get on and talk to you about the a6500 and 4 reasons why I think it is a great camera for you to have if you are an aspiring videographer, cinematographer, producer, film person, or if you're already kind of established. Reason number 1. In-camera stabilization. So something that comes standard on the a6500 is in-camera stabilization, and what that does is that just helps you while you're shooting handheld to stabilize the image so it's not too shaky. Now, using this in conjunction with a lens that already has lens stabilization as well, and in conjunction with things like Premiere Pro's warp stabilizer feature, can be great. The thing about using warp stabilizer though is you have to already have a steady hand while you're shooting in order for warp stabilizer in Premiere to be beneficial to you. The second thing that makes the a6500 a great camera is the higher frame rates that you can shoot at on this camera. So something you probably noticed about me with Veda is that I tend to shoot a lot of slow motion footage now, and a lot of that is because I got the a6500. It's really great at shooting slow-mo footage. You can shoot 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, and that just really adds a nice flair to anything you're shooting because you can now have those awesome pans and tilts with, again, less shaky footage because you're shooting at a faster frame per second. Something that I think is really unique to Sony is that they start to give you these features of in-camera stabilization and higher frame rates at a lower base model camera rather than other brands. Once again, these tools and these tricks help enable you as an artist or a filmmaker or whatever you want to call yourself to produce the content, produce the mood, set the tone that you want to set for whatever piece you're trying to create. So shooting at a higher frame rate and having that be available to you when you're running and gunning, can't beat it. The third thing about the a6500 that I think is awesome is its ability to have an external microphone attached to it. So before, when I was shooting on my little A5000s, which I still shoot on, this is A5000 is the camera too. Before, when I was shooting on those, when I wanted to have good audio, I would have to set up a second audio. Usually it was my Zoom H1N, and then in post I would have to go in and sync the two together, usually using Pluralize, but sometimes Pluralize would be kind of janky, so I'd have to do it the old school way by claps and things like that, which could be really frustrating. Not that it's necessarily that much harder to sync footage, but again, it's one more SD card you have to think about. It's, you know, one more thing you gotta remember to drop. It's one more thing you gotta remember to dit and organize and keep track of when you're in your post-production process. With the a6500, I just have an external mic attached on top of it that I've talked about, the Rode mic, and the audio feeds directly into the camera, which makes it easier for me when editing, especially when I'm running and gunning. Now that I'm starting to do more of these documentary style vlogs, it's great to have good audio just built into my footage already that I can play around with, add effects to, dramatize a little bit more. You know, it all works, and it all helps for you to be a one-man or one-woman band, you know, which is really cool. I really appreciate that about the Sony a6500. And finally, the last thing is 4K capabilities. Now, I wanted to save this for last because I have a love-hate relationship with 4K. Coming as someone who got into film and video production as an editor and as an assistant editor and a DIT. DIT is the person who manages footage on a set. As someone who got into it doing those jobs primarily, 4K is annoying. When you're editing and creating an editing workflow with a lot of 4K footage, you gotta do things offline and this and that and whatever. It's just a lot to manage in the post-production process. Depending on where your final product is gonna end up, not a lot of gain, you know? For me personally, everything I shoot more or less is gonna end up online somewhere. So my videos here on YouTube are usually either 720p or 1080p and no higher than that, because the reality is you're not even gonna, if I shot them in 4K, you wouldn't even really get the full scope of it being in 4K unless you're watching that video on your 65-inch screen TV or you're watching it in a theater. Since I know most of my stuff is only gonna ever get watched on a phone, a tablet, maybe your laptop, having 4K isn't necessary, but having 4K when you use it as a tool the right way can be really helpful. For example, during Veda, I shot a short film called My Name is Hallease, where I talk about why I don't like it when people try to create a nickname from my name or try to shorten my name. And it's a really simple short film. It's just me sitting on this couch actually, and you see the camera slowly begin to zoom in on my face as voiceover plays. Now, I shot that in 4K because I knew the end result was only ever gonna be in 720p. And what that allowed me to do was do that slow zoom in for impact as my voiceover is playing and not lose picture quality and not have pixelation or anything like that. And I did that because I knew going into shooting it that I was gonna wanna do a slow zoom in and have that momentum. So I shot it in 4K. And so that's why I think having 4K can be a great feature for this camera when you use it, you know, when you use it strategically, you know? Say you're gonna be somewhere and you know you're gonna try to catch something that you only have one chance to get it. You know the end product is only ever gonna be at 1080p max. Go ahead and shoot it in 4K. Why? Because then, even though you only got one chance to get it, you set up your shot. Now, because your 4K frame is this big, you have 7 different shots within one shot. You can show what's happening here. You can show what's happening here. Show what's happening here. You can show the main thing that's happening here. You have all these different shots even though you technically only shot one time. So yeah, those are my 4 things. One caveat I will say though too is keep in mind that gear is expensive. I get that. And so you want to try to make an investment that is smart for where you're at in what you're doing. For me, I was using my A5000s for a few years. I had been using them just to shoot YouTube content primarily since about 2014, 2015, and it's now 2017, and I still use them. I still use them for camera too. And they weren't expensive. They were $400, one was $400, the other one I bought was off of Craigslist for like $200. So I've really gotten a great return on my investment for how long I've had these cameras. And as you can see, they still work and they still produce great pictures and I still use them. So even now, as they're obsolete, they're still a great tool for me to use to tell the stories I want to tell at a very low cost. The only thing about them was that I was noticing that I couldn't tell the stories as well as I wanted to tell them because the tool was limiting in certain ways. And that's what made me go to the a6500. Now, keep in mind, because I had these Sony cameras for so long, I had started to invest in different lenses and different gear that are associated with Sony. So I kind of grandfathered my way into being a primarily Sony shop. Investing in the a6500 made sense financially for me because I already had a great lens package and I already had cameras that I was familiar with running and working with. All I had to do was buy a new body. And I think after I paid for a 2-year warranty and tax, the a6500 came out to a little under $2 grand. So, you know, it's an investment, but think about it this way. I spent a little over $2 grand, and the reality is, unless I buy another a6500, so my camera 2 and camera 1 are completely identical, I won't need to buy a new camera again for a good 5 years or so, if not even more, frankly. So keep that in mind as you are looking to invest. Now, if mom and dad are bankrolling you, or you got a sugar daddy, sugar mama that's hooking you up, you know, props, do you, boo, you know? But for the rest of us who have full-time jobs and, you know, use the full-time jobs to slowly fund the things we like to do, and or to slowly kind of build momentum and build content, and, you know, just keep slowly getting more and more professional, you know, making smart future-proof investments in the gear that you have and maximizing the gear that you have for as long as you have is important. So take everything I'm saying about the Sony a6500 with a grain of salt if you know you're pretty much primarily a Canon person because you've kind of grandfathered yourself into Canon. Think about the long-term benefits and go from there. So yeah, that's me. I just really wanted to get on and talk about that. That's like all I gotta say about it though, so. I'll see you when I see you.